In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, may the peace and blessings of Allah the Exalted be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his purified progeny, and may the wrath of Allah or the damnation of Allah be upon their enemies. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue this part 2 in episode 9, where we were mentioning some of the arguments of Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi from 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗧, where he mentioned that within the Quran it speaks about captivity, ransoming or pardoning for the people who have been overcome in war. And he says that if it was obligatory upon them just to become Muslim in the context of war when they are overcome, then the Holy Quran would say fight them until they become Muslim. But the Holy Quran, it did not say that. So on pages 28 and 29 of 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗧, we read some of the points and the arguments as mentioned. Now we mentioned one hadith which said the Imam says, verily he, the one who becomes defeated in war, becomes a captive, pardoned or ransomed. So these hadith show what? That there are these 3 stages, and it's not just convert to Islam or be slaughtered. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi says what? Therefore, if it was obligatory that we kill them until they submitted to Islam, then there would be no concept of taking them as captives, pardoning them, or ransoming them. These 3 options exist according to the ahadith and the Quran. The same applies to the Ajam Mushrik as mentioned in the 2nd paragraph. So now Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi rahmatullah alayhi, what does he do? He quotes another hadith which is from Hussein bin Ali and Imam Ali alayhi salam, peace be upon them both, which discusses about providing safety for those who are mushrikeen. So it shows in war that safety can be presented to them. For example, the narration, it says what? It says that فَإِذَا أَمَّنَ أَحَدْ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ أَحَدْ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ لَمْ يَجِبْ أَن تُخْفَرَ ذِمَّتُهُ. So the Imams say, if one of the Muslims provides safety for one of the polytheists, then there is no need to break that safety, or one ought not to break that safety. And one should present him with the Islamic conditions. If they accept, then they accept. So because polytheism is such a concept and such a thing that goes against the intellect, it's very easy to persuade a sincere polytheist to leave polytheism, because he just needs to use his intellect that he worship things that have no life to them, that cannot benefit him nor can benefit others. So it says if they accept, they accept, or they can become dhimma. So according to the narration, the Imam alayhi salam, he says that they can become أو يكونوا dhimma, they can become protected. And if nobody offered them protection, then they return to their place of safety, and they would be killed if they, of course, have if a war would occur with the Muslims. So if they would come and fight the Muslims again. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, what's the main point that we derive from this? He is showing how that protection can be given to those who are from non-Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book. The verse, what does it say? We'll get to that later inshallah ta'ala, about those who are fighting in the context of war, that they have the option of paying jizya and they can live safely under the Muslims, even if they were fighting the non-Muslims. Even if they were fighting the Muslims and they are non-Muslims, they have that option if they are from Ahlul Kitab. But he shows here from the narrations that even the mushrikeen, they have a type, they can be offered protection from the Muslim army. They can be offered this protection and they can even be returned to the place, their place of safety. So it is not obligatory just to kill them. And due to these narrations, some of the ulama would say that the ones that talk about only Islam or killing is accepted from them, these become muqayyad. So if anyone is familiar with the concept of mutlaq and muqayyad, so they become restricted, not absolute, where everything in these narrations would say that this is absolute, where at all times mushrikeen should just, when overcome, accept Islam or be killed. No, according to the narrations, the protection can be accepted for them. So it continues, And Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi comments on this, and he says that the apparent of this hadith is that their protection is accepted. So where does it say kill them until they become Muslim in these ahadith? It shows that they can be offered protection. He continues to say, I do not find a clear statement from any of the jurists for it being obligatory to kill every non-kitabi. So everyone who is from non-Ahlul Kitab, that they accept Islam or die. And the apparent meaning of some of the jurist words is what we have concluded from the verses and narrations, which is that when a non-Kitabi is fought under the Muslims and the Muslims gain power over them, they choose between safety, ransoming and captivity. And this is what the Prophet Muhammad did when, so he continues, and this is what the Prophet Muhammad did when he defeated the enemies in Badr and there were polytheists left. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi again, he goes to the biography of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where he says that after mushriks, polytheists who were not from the people of the book were left after the Battle of Badr. They were not killed, rather they took ransom money from them and they were left on their polytheism. So he says, تُرِكُوا وَشَأْنُهُمْ وَلَا يُقْتَلُونَ. So they were not killed. They were left after taken some ransom money from them. Which again shows what? That it is not obligatory in the state of war to kill all of the mushrikeen if they do not become Muslim. Although one of them could easily, even so, one of them could easily trick the Muslims. It's very easy for one to become Muslim. They say the Shahada, and the ruling is that the Muslims judge on the apparent. So if the mushrik who was fighting against the Muslims who wanted to kill them, he's captured, and then he would say the Shahada, it is judged from the apparent, even though in his heart he may still be a polytheist that worships idols. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi says what? He says they were not killed, rather they took ransom money from them and they were left on their polytheism. And they were not forced to follow Islam, and the same was done to the people of Mecca. So the same was done to them as well. So what does he mention here? Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, he mentions that after the Fath of Mecca, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he took over Mecca and he had the polytheists left, he said to them what? اذهبوا فأنتم طلقاء. اذهبوا فأنتم طلقاء. That go, you are free basically, and you are the طلقاء. So these are the people that were freed by the Prophet. They were not killed. You know, there was the forgiveness there, the mercy of the Prophet, we can say. And they were not forced to become Muslims. Although after that, they became Muslims. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, what he's saying here in 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢 is that if it was always obligatory to kill someone who is non-Ahlul Kitab when they do not submit to Islam, then why would the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do such an act? Why would he not just slaughter all of them after the Fath of Mecca? So go as you are tulaqa. Initially mushrikeen, polytheists, and then later on they became Muslim. And what Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi says is that the Prophet did not kill them or force them on Islam, and the same happened in Hunayn. So there we go, and we see that if one is captured, they can be given ransom, given protection. And this is where, if they can be ransomed, given protection, or freed, if they are freed after that, they are not killed, then Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, he gives the argument that an amount of money can be allocated to them, and this could be possibly what? Jizya, that they pay this money and they live peacefully with the Muslims, or they return to their place and they are not allowed to live amongst the Muslims and they go to whatever land they came back to. So one argument after this was, of course, again to mention for the dear brothers and sisters, the pages of 28 and 29 of 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗥, which was, of course, in Arabic. However, I translated the couple of pages so that we could derive some of the points from this, inshallah ta'ala. But if you want some English reading as well, we have Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi. He's got a book, Politics, the Very Heart of Islam, and he actually mentions some of these narrations about protection for polytheists, that protection can be for them. So one of the chapters, I believe in 221, page 221, He says the lowest ranking among them can grant refuge of the Muslims. So the Muslim who's not even the commander, he's got that authority to grant refuge. And he quotes the Prophet saying as well after this. He said, if a Muslim army surrounds an army of pagans, and a pagan man says, give me asylum, give me protection, so that I can meet your leader and debate with him, and the most junior ranking of them grants him asylum, it is incumbent upon the senior of the Muslims to honor that. This is one of the sources on page 221 that Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi mentions. So this shows again that there is a concept of protection there. On page 222, a saying from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, a hadith from Imam Sadiq. He says, what if a group besieges a city and they ask for asylum and they say no, but they think they have said yes, and they come down, then they are entitled to refuge. So let's say here that the mushrikeen, they thought that the Muslims gave them refuge. So they came down, they thought it's safe. The Muslims, after that, if it was a misunderstanding from the polytheists, the Muslims are not allowed to kill them, and again should honor that protection. We also find, dear brothers and sisters, on page 224 that the same narration which was mentioned in 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗖𝗥𝗓, or a similar one, is stated where Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says about that if one of the Muslims gives a promise of protection to any of the pagans, then his promise of protection ought to not be broken. So this Muslim says, I give you protection from the Muslim army. He cannot deceive the person and break this after that. He should not do that. He should honor this protection to then see what happens after, and whether, for example, this polytheist, he becomes Muslim, or what happens according to the conditions of the Quran about them being ransomed or set free, etc. So this is the arguments that Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi gave to show that it is not just that non-Ahlul-Kitab face death. And therefore, he says that the opinion that jizya can be accepted for the non-Ahlul-Kitab. So let's say now, according to some scholars' theories, that if an Islamic state was established under the shura of the fuqaha, then the peaceful minorities who are not from the people of the book and who are non-Muslims can be given protection by the Muslims if they have peace with the Muslims and live peacefully with them, whether they be polytheists or the non-Ahlul Kitab. Now finally, dear brothers and sisters, to finish off, Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi on another page, he gives a very nice argument where he says, for example, ثم وهل يمكن إمكانا ملائما لمذاك الإسلام أن يقتل الإسلام ملايين الكفار غير أهل كتاب إذا لم يسلموا ومن المعلوم أن الكفار لا يسلمون بسهولة إلا بعضهم. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi in the argument, he says that is it from the taste of Islam that Islam would kill millions of kuffar, of non-believers, if they didn't convert to Islam, who are not from Ahlul Kitab? And he says that it is very clear that the non-Muslims would not become Muslims easily, only some of them. And this point is crucial here to analyze, because as we know, there are so much shubahat these days. In the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams alayhim salam, the haqq was very, very clear for those who wanted the haqq. And even for that, it was clear for many of those who didn't want to submit to the haqq, but they knew it within their hearts. It was very clear. But these days what we find is that there's many shubahat, there's many doubts that are put forth, and so many doubts which misguide people. And many people, unfortunately, they do not have the answers, or they do not know the right places to look for the answers. So Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi is saying now, he says, let's say, he says, مثلا إذا سيطر المسلمين سيطر المسلمون على الهند يقتلون كل من لم يقبل الإسلام وهم عشرات الملايين. So he says that if the Muslims now, as an example, let's say they overcame, they had a war with India. India attacked the Muslims, they had a war, and then the Muslims, they take over India. He says, does it then mean what, that Islam would kill millions of them? Tens of millions of them would be killed and slaughtered because they do not become Muslim. So to sum up, dear brothers and sisters, from this opinion of Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, what he says is that the haqq is not, it's not easy for everyone to become Muslims from the non-Muslims, and only some of them would become that. And obviously we know that is because of the various doubts that exist in the world today. So he says, is it from the taste and the spirit of Islam that every person who is from non-Ahlul-Kitab is killed? And as we know, India is a country where there's Muslims, but there are many, majority non-Ahlul-Kitab. So these are some of the arguments, dear brothers and sisters, that were presented by Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi to show that protection can be even given to non-Ahlul Kitab, and it is not obligatory to kill them in all stages or in all cases. And this was his proof for jizya being accepted, being able to be accepted from the non-Ahlul Kitab, and his response to those who say that when Muslims overtake someone in a war and they are non-Ahlul Kitab, that they have only between Islam and the sword. Rather, we see the Imams alayhim salam offered protection according to the ahadith as mentioned. So dear brothers and sisters, our next episode will be the final one, where we discuss the verse of jizya. Does the verse mean that all non-Muslims from Ahlul Kitab must pay jizya in a humiliated way while they're being mocked? We will discuss this inshallah ta'ala and end our series. I thank you for joining us. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum wa la'an a'da'ahum.
بالله بمحمد بن علي بفاطمة بالحسن بالحسين بالأئمة الأطهار.